KMAN Daily Weather is presented by Fox Business Systems. How much does downtime cost you and your business? Don't let another second go by. Call Fox Business Systems at 776-1452.
Your News Radio, KMAN, Manhattan area forecast, sunshine 50 today. Chance of rain developing overnight, possibly even a thunderstorm ahead of sunrise. 32 the overnight low. Rain likely through the day tomorrow, possibly a late day thunderstorm again. 46 for the high under the clouds. Rain through midnight tomorrow night, then mixing with snow possibly. Could also hear a rumble of thunder through the overnight. 33 tomorrow night's low.
Digging deeper into the conversations, trends, and ideas impacting Manhattan and the Flint Hills. This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio, KMAN.
Deep political divisions led to Kansas becoming a state. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 allowed settlers in the Kansas Territory to decide the issue of slavery. Some opposed it, others supported it, and it led to a series of violent political confrontations involving terror, destruction, and death, came to be known as Bleeding Kansas. Then on January 29, 1861, Kansas was admitted to the United States as the 34th state. It marked a significant movement in American history as Kansas entered the Union as a free state. Those deep divisions didn't just go away. A civil war over slavery followed, and Kansas became a symbol of the fight for freedom and the expansion of democratic principles throughout the country. Our guest today on this Kansas Day is former Kansas Governor John Carlin. He calls Manhattan home. We'll visit with him today about today's deep political divisions and what it means to be a Kansan. My name is Mike Matson. I'm a former journalist, a one-time political operative and lobbyist. Today I write an opinion column for the Manhattan Mercury. I've authored a couple of books, and I am your host for Within Reason. It is a purposefully named talk show / podcast. It's designed specifically as a tool to help foster critical thinking in our area. Within Reason is presented by Stormont Vale Health, McCown Gordon Construction, and the Trust Company. We are live on News Radio KMAN. We're live streaming on YouTube. If you'd like to see us there, you can go to YouTube, search News Radio KMAN. There you'll find us. Governor Carlin is clad in his purple Power Cat button-down. I've got on a white shirt with a black vest, and so you need to check us out. We're also being recorded and will be posted as a podcast on KMAN's website, on Apple and Spotify. We're delighted to welcome Governor John Carlin to our microphone. Governor, thanks for being here.
Mike, I'm very pleased to be here and have the opportunity.
We appreciate very much your willingness to show up and talk a little bit about Kansas, a little bit about Kansas Day, and just what it means what in the big picture and the small picture. Let's don't assume people know and remember you as governor or your life. So give us, just if you can, your life story abridged. It started on the farm.
Oh yes, my degree from K-State was in dairy. It was called dairy husbandry in those days, and it's dairy science now. I went back to the farm with my dad, registered Holsteins, milked cows, and we had very good success, both on the production and the type side, showing cattle, and bred a very famous bull, Carlin M. Ivanhoe Bell, that, sometime down the road I could tell you a couple stories about it, just fascinating over the years.
That's a whole show in itself.
That's right, in terms of that Bell bull, but just in terms of my life and coming up. He was well known.
Sure.
Very well known. But, I got flukishly, and that takes too long to get into the detail, but running for the legislature, served for 4 terms, benefited by the fact that the governor at the time, Governor Bennett, appointed the minority leader, Pete Locks from Wichita, to the Corporation Commission, and I was the assistant minority leader. I became the minority leader, and then we won the majority in the 76 election, and I became speaker, and that gave me the platform to at least try to run for governor. And
when you were growing up on the dairy farm in Smoland, did you think about ever becoming governor of Kansas, or did you think about politics then?
Not at all. Zero. Now, my folks, I was raised in a Democratic family, and I locally, the most I did was I was a township, I forget the title.
Trustee, maybe?
I don't know. I really don't remember. But, I remember my first experience in politics just like I say, I had no interest, but a neighbor, young man in Lostock, got acquainted with Tice, who ended up being a federal judge out of Wichita running for the U.S. Senate. And he said, I need help. And he assigned me to work, because he had a tough primary.
Right.
And he assigned me to work Smolin Township Democrats.
That was a finite number, I suspect, at that time?
Oh, I mean, I'm not talking about a big deal here,
Right.
Mike. But I worked him door to door.
Sure.
And made a case. And Smolin Township carried for him like 44-4 or something like that. So that was a lesson I later pulled up and remembered. You got to ask.
Fair enough. Our guest is
that worked out good.
Our guest is Governor John Carlin. We're talking about his experience as governor in Kansas coming up at K-State. We're also talking about Kansas Day. It's January 29th. It's our 164th birthday since we were entered into the Union. Governor, briefly, you were Speaker of the Kansas House.
Yes.
As a Democrat.
Yes.
The 1978 elections roll around. How was it that you came to become the Democratic nominee for governor?
Well, I was ready to go back to the farm rather than run for the legislature again, and then decided, a good friend talked me into thinking about it, and I decided to run. And I had a primary, two more well-known statewide than I was. But I worked hard and had some breaks and won the nomination, and then incredibly won. Now, I only beat Bob Bennett because everybody knew he couldn't lose.
Well, if you think about it, 1978, and it's probably important for us to remind folks of what it was like back then. Governor Bennett had been elected in 1974. He was the first governor that had been elected to a 4-year term after we changed the rules. So he had won. He was a lawyer from Overland Park. He had the Republican Party behind him. He had won a 4-year term. Everyone expected him to coast to a second 4-year term in re-election, and up pops this dairy farmer from Smolin.
Yes, and it was up pop that time. And I knew it was a long shot, but like I said, I was ready to go back and milk cows, so if I lost, it was no big deal. But I had breaks, and the main break was the fact that Bennett knew he could win. Never took me seriously. And I struggled to raise money. Finally had enough to be on television the last week. And it was just amazing when I was campaigning in Wichita that last weekend before the Tuesday, going into bars and bowling alleys, and people would say, "Oh, that's Carlin."
Oh, they recognize you from your television
First time.
commercials. Yes.
First time. Didn't know who it was.
Right.
And the last poll, and it was published in the Topeka Daily Capital the
Right.
Sunday before the Tuesday election, had him up 49-33. I was down 16 points. I mean, how could
Sure.
I win?
So when you think about it, right, you had been Speaker of the House, right?
Yes.
You are in charge of the Kansas House of Representatives. You and your colleagues in the Democratic Party set the policy agenda. It is a legislative branch of government. You moved from that into top of the flow chart on the executive branch. Was there a learning curve there?
Obviously. But I had worked with Governor Docking and Governor Bennett. I was actively involved very shortly after my first election, and so I give 4-H a lot of credit, Mike.
Sure.
I learned some. I learned how to run a meeting, Robert's Rules of Order, making presentations, demonstrations, and then I was on judging teams. And as I reflect back, I think those judging teams and the competition where you had to decide in 8 minutes how you're going to place a class, the reasons, in the afternoon give your reasons and so forth, it trained my brain to make decisions. And then I always combined that with the fact that I knew I wasn't the smartest person, so I always surrounded myself with the best talent, whatever I was doing, but I could decide then what the decision should be.
Your comment related to the judging teams, a quick promo, right? K-State is home to 3 national championship judging teams. They won livestock judging nationally.
Yes.
They won crops judging, and they won meats judging.
Yes.
And one day, we've got them on the calendar. We've got members of each of the 3 teams who will join us in this studio to have that conversation. It's one of those things
Fantastic.
that unless you've lived it, unless you really understand what it can bring, it's kind of hard for people to get their head around.
Yeah, but it is a great training experience. Even if you don't end up like, I moved
governor of
on to other
Kansas.
things than livestock or milk cows. But it was fantastic, and I'm pleased you're going to have them in. And we consistently win crops and meat. Crops in particular. I don't think we lose that one very often.
Right.
I think they had a long winning streak, and then every so years we win the livestock.
And
We've never won dairy.
It's important probably to remember the Roberts rules with respect to what you learned in 4-H. I can recall my most vivid memory was a motion to adjourn is always in order and non-debatable. The state of Kansas was created from the Kansas Territory, which was established in 1854 as part of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. On this 164th anniversary of Kansas statehood, we are visiting with John Carlin of Manhattan, Kansas. He served as governor of Kansas from 1979 until 1987. We will continue our conversation with Governor Carlin as Within Reason continues here on News Radio KMAN.
This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio KMAN.
Stormontvale Health is your go-to for exceptional care right in your own neighborhood.
The Flint Hills campus in Junction City is open 24/7 with a full-service hospital and rural health clinic. You'll find primary care and advanced lab services at our Wamego clinic to keep your family healthy without the drive. Our Manhattan campus offers a wide range of primary and specialty providers, plus imaging and lab services, and a pick-me-up at Radina's inside our campus. Visit stormontvale.org.
Stormontvale Health. High-quality care closer to home.
In a world that thrives on connection, the power of community leadership is more important than ever. In just 90 minutes on February 11th, starting at 7:30 in the morning, the annual 60 and 60 Leadership Breakfast presented by the Manhattan Mercury and Manhattan Chamber of Commerce will take place at the Manhattan Convention Center Hilton Garden Inn. An inspiring morning filled with knowledge, connection, and empowerment. 6 leaders in our community will present their company's most successful programs, provide tools and ideas that you can use to grow as a leader and as a company. Tickets can be purchased online at tickets.themercury.com/events. Attendees will receive 60 ideas in an exclusive supplement package that will give you the knowledge to grow personally as well as professionally. 60 in 60, February 11th from 7:30 to 9:30. Presented by the Manhattan Mercury, the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, and News Radio KMAN.
The secret to getting ahead is getting started. The words of Mark Twain. If you know what it's like to be behind and you're looking to get ahead for a change, it's Central Time. Open a new opportunity checking account with Central National Bank that makes finances easy. Account opening is subject to qualifications. Restrictions may apply.
Central National Bank, money for life.
Member FDIC. Money for getting started since 1884.
We're looking for good people who want to work with good people while informing and entertaining the community. News Radio KMAN has part-time staff openings, and we would like to talk with you about how you can be a part of what we do daily. Drop us a note on the Message Us tab at newsradiokman.com or email KMANnews@1350kman.com. That's the Message Us tab at newsradiokman.com or KMANnews@1350kman.com with the subject line, Now Hiring.
This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio KMAN.
Abraham Lincoln emphasized the importance of Kansas as a free state and supported its admission to the Union as part of his broader fight against the expansion of slavery. In his speeches, Lincoln often highlighted the resilience of the people of Kansas and their commitment to liberty. During his presidency, when asked if he would advise his fellow citizens what to do or to go west, he would say, "If I went west, I think I'd go to Kansas." Our guest today on this Kansas Day is former Kansas Governor John Carlin, who calls Kansas home, who calls Manhattan home. We're reminiscing with him about his experience as a Kansan and on Kansas Day. Governor, when you were governor, did this notion of Kansas Day take on added importance or significance in terms of the way you thought about our state?
Well, I had the opportunity to be the governor when we celebrated the 125th.
That had a real long name, as I recall.
Yeah,
It wasn't sesquicentennial, it was something else. But,
yes,
but you were,
beyond my capacity to remember my age, but it was a special one. Yeah. And of course, what made it, unfortunately for history, special because we had three Kansans who were astronauts at the time. I had them in my office as we prepared for the day. And then, of course, the Challenger blew up.
Right.
And they were called back. But it was a great celebration. Nancy Engelwald, my staff, very good friend of mine, ran the whole thing for a year. We made a big thing out of it to celebrate the state. And of course, we have a lot to be proud of. I mean, you think about the people that have contributed nationally. I mean, Alf Landon lost to FDR, but admired and respected nationally, probably internationally, for years. And then I probably have to say for sure, probably best known for the fact he had a daughter, Nancy Landon Cassabaum, who became a U.S. Senator, of course, and was someone we could be very, very proud of.
Doesn't take long at all when you start listing prominent Kansans to come up with a pretty significant list of heavy hitters. Governor John Carlin is our guest. He lives in Manhattan. He went to K-State. He served in the Kansas legislature, Speaker of the House, ran for governor, reelected. You were pretty young when you were doing that, right? I want to say you were, 40 years old when you were elected governor first?
Well, not quite, but close.
Okay. To 39.
38.
38.
I was 38. I was born in 1940.
Okay.
Born in 1940.
So when you thought about that, right, and the Constitution allows you to serve 2 terms, you had a lot of life left after you left office. So
that's correct.
When you were thinking about leaving, how were you planning the rest of your life?
Well, I was not going to go back to the farm. In fact, I only stayed with the milking into my first year as governor. And one morning I got a call about a problem with the bulk tank, and I said, I can't be governor of Kansas and have my folks out at the farm calling me. So I leased the cows out and then later sold them. And so the cows were gone when I left the governor's office. And I did a variety. Principal thing I did, I went to Wichita State University and taught for 3 semesters.
So give us a sense of that, right? You clearly had a lot of knowledge, a lot of institutional knowledge. Was it difficult to transition from serving in politics to standing in front of a classroom?
Well, it's different, but it's, a lot of it the same. Yeah. I mean, in terms of an audience and speaking and so forth. And I taught one semester at Washburn while I was governor. But it was the Hugo Wall Center of Public Administration. Ed Flingy, who was in the Bennett administration, was with the program at that time, and it was a great experience.
When you think about younger people today, right, that may be turned off by politics based on what they see and what they experience and all the challenges that we're facing, is there something? Do you have advice for them? Do you put yourself in their shoes and try to figure out what's the best thing for them to do to try to make things better?
Well, the challenge is there for sure. We got some problems, but I would tell them. One of the things too many of our young people don't that much about history, know very little or nothing about politics. Can't explain really how the government works. Right. 3 branches of government equal, and so forth. So I would say, your future. Just wishing somebody else, be knowledgeable. So at very least when you vote, you're a more helpful voter. You actually know the challenges and who might be able best to take them on. And we have challenges. I think about climate change, and it's been poo-pooed for so many years, but it's real.
Right.
It is very real. Jimmy Carter made a big deal out of it when he was president a long time ago.
He was sort of ahead of the curve on that issue.
He was a brilliant scientist and understood exactly what needed to be done. He laid out a plan, got no attention whatsoever. So it's been an issue around, but we got to take it seriously. I mean, finally take it seriously, and the public. It's got to start there with the public saying, I want to support candidates who understand we need to do something.
It's a great point that you raise related just to how sometimes it takes a while for issues to become ripe. I remember when you were governor, this notion of, I think at the time it was called parimutuel betting, right? This idea that you could bet on horse races or dog races in Kansas, and it led to a broader conversation of the morality of gambling, and the Kansas lottery was involved with that. But it took years for that to finally sort of reach fruition where people were willing to accept it. Is that a good thing?
Well, I want to think it is, because obviously that's what I pushed my last year. I mean, one of my real initiatives in the '86 election when I was going out and Governor Hayden got elected was parimutuel and the lottery. Liquor by the drink was a huge one. I led it primarily because I always remember, and I can't remember his name, but he was running Boeing at the time in Wichita, and when Boeing was really big in Wichita. Clearly didn't drink. I mean, but he said, we've got to make a change. And he, just because of the awkwardness of, people coming from out of state, I mean, we were laughed at.
The notion of having social skills, right, to entertain people that are going to bring money to the economy.
Right. And then the thing people didn't understand was people are going to drink, but they only had a choice. They had to buy a bottle.
And if you think about it, right, this would have been the late 70s, early 80s. We only crawled out of temperance just 30, 40 years before that.
Oh, yes.
And so it is a cultural change that often takes generations. But as I recall, you couched it in terms of economic development.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was definitely a part of my economic development plan that we had to change our image. And I think it's, it was interesting. Mike Hayden, we're good friends now.
You bet.
Very good friends. But he opposed me on that. He was Speaker of the House. And
while you were governor?
Well, I was governor in selling those amendments where you got to get a 2/3 vote. He's the Speaker. He's in the majority of the House. I've got to get a lot of Republicans to vote for these, and was able to do it. It was probably, in some ways, from a political point of view, my most significant achievement, politically speaking, to get those votes.
And you think about the lottery, right? It's commonplace. People don't give it a second thought today. Go to the quick shop, pick up a couple of lottery tickets, and my gosh, I'm going to strike it rich, and I'm going to have to. I get to retire. But back then, when you were pushing it, there was still this sort of this temperance-driven, morality-driven sort of conversation that clearly has evolved.
Yes, very definitely, and I. But it's brought a lot of money in. I can't give you a total, but a lot of money in the number of decades since we approved it.
Well, if you think about what Kansas does today with respect to fostering economic development and private sector job creation, much of the programs that are in place today began in your term.
Yes. The state had, in fairness to my previous governors,
those who came before you.
Those who came before me. 2-year terms until Bennett's 4-year. And a 2-year term, you don't have a lot of time to bring change.
Right.
So I'm defending them a little bit because amazing, I was the first one to show any interest in economic development and created and got the program going, and then Hayden followed up and supported it, and so it got established. One thing, and we can get into it a little more as much as you want, Republicans, I worked with Republicans. We got things done.
Let's talk about that. And before we do, just one more point on this notion of just sort of cultural evolution, right? We're at a point now where we can look back and really get a sense of what you were doing at the time in the late 70s and early 80s, and how much meaning we thought it had then. But now, over the course of time that has occurred since that time, we really get a sense that, gosh, Kansas is thought of a lot differently today than it would have been in 1978.
Oh, yes. I mean, a lot of time has gone by.
Right.
Oh, gosh, yes. But we started modernizing and initiating. I mean, one of my later, and we can get in some other time or whatever, the Bioscience Authority, that Governor Sebelius, Democrat, with the Republican legislature, put that together, and we're so excited about it. And Brownback comes in and destroys it because Arthur Laffer, who nationally, internationally known economist, had this idea you can't pick winners and losers. And of course, our theory was we evaluated projects and we went with the good ones that were going to work.
This notion of bipartisanship. Let's touch on that. I mean, Kansas, we're a Republican state.
Yes.
We're probably about as red as it gets when you look at all 50 states. Yet we seem to elect a lot of Democratic governors over the years. So clearly, voters in Kansas think more about the individual than they do the party label. Do you think that is still true today?
I think to some extent, for sure. I think some of it is balance. They kind of assume there's going to be a Republican legislature, maybe, because we've won at least half the races in my lifetime, and for a state where we're considered a distinct minority, there's got to be some reason there. And it's made the 4-year term was a huge plus for the state, because it does give the governor, Republican or Democrat, some time for some new ideas. 2 years, I mean, it's just over with before you get started. You kind of share it, and the legislature thinks about it. The severance tax is an example. The first term I presented it. I had to win re-election to get it done.
More evidence that sometimes it takes years for policy ideas to come to fruition.
Yes, and so you got to have patience. But as I mentioned earlier, working across the aisle, I mean, one of the disappointments I have now is everything is so partisan. I mean, viciously partisan. And there are exceptions. Bennett was governor and I was a legislative leader. I remember going down to his office and negotiating and so forth. Ross Doyne, a senator from Concordia at the time, he was president of the Senate. I mean, my major transportation bill only got through because of him and his patience when the vote was being counted.
We are visiting with John Carlin. He is governor of Kansas from 1979 until 1987. And this is Kansas Day, so we're talking a lot about what it means to be a Kansan as well. Last point on this notion of partisanship, Governor. Our very first guest on this program in October was Governor Laura Kelly. She was gracious enough to come over and visit with us, and she was not shy. She took advantage of the opportunity to be on this show to take after the Republican supermajority. And, of course, this was before the election when their numbers got even bigger. And her biggest complaint was the legislature is getting involved in budget writing. That's the governor's job. Is that here to stay?
I hope not, because it's very unfortunate that part-time legislators are now trying to put a budget together for the whole state budget. I mean, it doesn't make any good sense. It's just, I don't know why they went down that path. In the end, they get to write it. But I think it's important that the administration, Republican or Democrat, gets to put the budget together, because they're the ones with the staff, they're the ones with the heads of agencies they're working with, can put together the detail down to the little things that never make the press, and then present it to the legislature, and the legislature has the power to make changes.
It's called checks and balances.
Checks and balances.
That's the way it's supposed to work. As Governor John Carlin successfully expanded the Kansas education system, he increased funding for public schools and higher education. He implemented significant reforms in mental health services. That improved care and resources for those in need. And as we mentioned earlier, he was instrumental in the establishment of the Kansas Lottery, which generated revenue for economic development efforts. Governor Carlin makes his home right here in Manhattan. He is our guest today on the Kansas Day version of Within Reason. After the break, we'll mine his memory a little bit more about our service to the state. Stay with us. This is Within Reason on News Radio KMAN.
This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio KMAN.
Here's AJ Patterson with Interim Healthcare Family Foundation.
At Interim Healthcare, we're more than just healthcare providers. We're your neighbors, your friends, and your support system. We believe in giving back to the community in every way we can, and that's why we're proud to offer our medical loan closet through our Interim Family Health Foundation. Whether you need crutches, a wheelchair, or even a hospital bed, our medical loan closet is here to help. It's completely free and open to anyone in the community, no strings attached. We know how stressful it can be when you or a loved one needs medical equipment, and we want to make it easier. At Interim Healthcare, we're committed to improving lives one family at a time. From offering personalized home healthcare services to supporting those in need through our medical loan closet, we're here for you every step of the way. Stop by to learn more or call Interim Healthcare. We'll make sure your loved ones are taken care of with the compassion and care they deserve.
Caring for our community is what we do best.
We care, we're there. Interim Healthcare.
This Valentine's Day, treat your sweetheart to an unforgettable evening at the Friendship House in Wamego. On February 14th and 15th, indulge in our exquisite 5-course tasting menu, crafted with care for this special occasion. But don't wait, this exclusive dining experience is by reservation only. Reserve your spot and make this Valentine's Day truly memorable. The Friendship House in Wamego, where love is always on the menu. Call 785-456-9616. Friendship House, just off the Yellow Brick Road by City Park in downtown Wamego.
All the way to the goal in the throwdown.
Man.
He's open for three. Yes! Yes!
A Wildcat.
3 seconds to go. Scoop shot. Yes! At the buzzer.
Be a part of the Wildcat voyage right here.
Now goes back in. There's the lob and the throwdown.
On your home for Kansas State Wildcat basketball.
The Cats play here. 1350 AM, 93.3 and 93.7 FM. This is News Radio KMAN. This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio KMAN.
The name Kansas is derived from the Kansa Native American tribe, meaning people of the South Wind, also made famous by a rock and roll song of the same name, People of the South Wind, by the rock group Kansas, led by Kerry Livgren, who still lives, and his rock and roll's different after he found the Lord, but that, we will give him a break. Our guest is Governor John Carlin, and we're visiting with him about all things Kansas Day. Before the break, Governor, we were talking about bipartisanship in Kansas, and you were mentioning that it has a long and storied tradition that goes back decades.
Yes, I think back. I think back of Senator Arthur Capper. Very strong conservative Republican, but was very helpful to Franklin Roosevelt in World War II. Very important. I think of Frank Carlson working with Lyndon Baines Johnson to get a lot of things done. I mean, we can be very proud of our history, and of course, Dwight D. Eisenhower, in terms of World War II, in terms of 2 terms as President of the United States. We have a rich history of people who have contributed a lot to this country. And you mentioned when we started about the involvement with President Lincoln.
Yep.
It's gone on down through the years.
And so clearly we're not in those days today, right? But we had others on this program who have indicated, who lived and breathed this world. Michael A. Smith, who co-authored with Ed Flingy this book you had referenced earlier, and he had talked about this notion of sort of the swinging of the pendulum, right? Sometimes it swings, and right now we're at a point where we are very partisan and we don't work together. But his thought as a historian was it'll swing back. Do you buy that?
Well, I certainly hope. I hope he's right, and history would say he is, because it has adjusted. But I was fortunate to be involved for many years. I mean, Senator Dole, obviously Majority Leader, prominent. I wouldn't have been Archivist of the United States if Dole had not been in his position.
So after you left governor, you had the opportunity to serve as Archivist of the United States in Washington, and Senator Dole was instrumental in helping you secure that federal appointment.
2 things. Clinton got elected, and we were both governors, and I was a very good friend of his. I helped him modestly. He wasn't focused on Kansas, but I helped. And so when he got elected, there was a vacancy. Didn't have archivist, and he kept looking for an archivist, and the historians and archivists kept fighting back and forth. 2 years go by, and a friend calls me and says, how would you like to be archivist in the United States? And I said, what's that?
Let's
and
learn a
they
little
say,
bit more about that.
We got to
before
have
we commit."
somebody that Clinton will appoint.
Right.
And Bob Dole will ram it through the Senate.
One of the last week we had on briefly Governor Kathleen Sebelius, and we wanted to have her on to talk about her experience after President-elect Obama had nominated her to serve in the cabinet, because clearly that's what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. She didn't have very nice things to say about RFK Jr., who might succeed her in that role with respect to what that looks like. But it does bring up, a really interesting dilemma or question. When you think about all of the controversy that is underway, and all you have to do is look at today's headlines to get a sense of the fear that federal employees are feeling as a result of some of the decisions that are being made by the federal administration. So here's the question. Do state governments become more important when you have an autocratic-leaning federal government?
Potentially, yes. Because hypothetically, not predicting, but hypothetically, if there's something that should be a national but needs to be done, it would shift back more to the states to do something. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of our problems, to have real success, almost has to have federal help. But the states can do a lot, and states partnering and carrying out and implementing a lot of what the federal government decides needs to be done and provides resources. A lot of it happens right out in the states.
Well, and if you think about that, that's sort of the way it's supposed to work, right?
Yes.
When you think about Congress passing an
That's our system.
Right. They'll pass an appropriation bill, but oftentimes it will be left to states to implement the policy, what that needs to look like. Same thing at the state level, down to the county and municipal level.
Yes.
Right. And so you can make a case that sometimes it's difficult and sometimes it's messy, but it has traditionally worked.
Yes. Yes, it has. We're being tested now. This is a much different time. And it'll be important for people to be open to looking at it and being willing, if they choose to say, well, maybe we didn't vote for this.
Does it scare you?
I'm nervous about the future. I mean, things could go haywire. I want my grandchildren to live in a democracy.
And what? Go ahead. Elaborate.
And we're at a shaky point. There's no question. I'm surprised. I did not expect the extreme, the movement so fast and in a dictatorial way, just cramming it. I mean, Republican members of Congress, congressmen, U.S. senators, have little input to what's being pushed.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but a lot of it's the overinfluence of billionaires. I mean, they see the world very differently than the rest of us. And they seem to have a lot of influence. You could see it Inauguration Day when President Trump was being sworn in and in the Capitol there. Who was right behind him beside his wife and kids? 6 or 8 billionaires.
A lot of the tech giants.
Primarily the tech giants. I mean, that's where the big money has come rapidly in a very short period of time. And it's reason for us to pause and not just automatically assume everything is going right. We got a lot of problems today, and it requires the talent we have to work with the direction. I think of avian flu as an example, bird flu. I mean,
it's here.
It's here, and we got a real problem. But we don't have solutions. And so we need a government that recognizes talented federal workers that have a history and knowledge of how scientists, a lot of those leaders are being just arbitrarily dismissed.
Our guest is Governor John Carlin. He served as governor of Kansas. He was elected in 1978, took office January of 79, reelected in 82. served until 1987. We're visiting with him about his service as governor, his service as speaker, his life as a dairy farmer in Smolan, Kansas. On this Kansas Day, it's January 29th, the 164th anniversary of Kansas becoming a state. Governor, this notion of where we are with respect to federal policy, you had touched on this before in your last response, but what is it that individual human beings can do about it? Because my sense is, my gut tells me, my experience tells me, there's a lot of people that are afraid and a lot of people that are just frustrated. What is it that they can do to feel better about all this?
Well, there's no instant, boom. But we need more people to actually understand more. The challenge we have right now, and makes it even more difficult, newspapers are not what they used to be. I grew up in a time when editors were prominent, good citizens providing leadership in the state. They're gone almost across the board. Right?
We have one here in town.
You do, but not like it used to be.
Right.
I mean,
you're right. You're exactly right.
I don't know, so I shouldn't. But no staff. Yep. They don't cover very much. And it's not Salina Journal. It's across the whole state because very wealthy people have bought up. It's part of the strategy of the very wealthy. You buy up the media, control it, and then you carve it down so you control with technology and other aspects so the local newspaper doesn't have that much influence on what people are thinking.
One of the things and it's a great point, and that's one of the reasons behind the creation of this program specifically and what Ned Seaton is doing with the combination of the Mercury and K-Man. He wants to make sure that these media systems will survive given this dynamic that you're describing.
Yes, and I compliment you, not just this show, but the broader picture, because it is absolutely key that citizens have local help in understanding what's going on.
Kansas became a state on January 29th, 1861, as the 34th state of the United States. 117 years after that, John Carlin, a dairy farmer from Smolan in Saline County, was elected and then re-elected governor of Kansas. We will continue our conversation with Governor Carlin on this Kansas Day as Within Reason continues. The Trust Company is an independent, locally owned wealth management and investment company founded right here in Manhattan in 1992. The motivation that drives your financial goals, your life, is unique to you and your family. You will not find boilerplate, template-driven, off-the-shelf financial services and strategies at the Trust Company, but plans that are thoughtfully and individually designed, tailored specifically to your hopes and dreams. The Trust Company, locally owned, client-focused. Their only allegiance is to you. Visit thetrustco.com.
This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio, KMAN.
At Stormontville Health, our patients are our neighbors and our communities are home.
We invest in your health and our community by bringing high-quality healthcare closer to home. From our Wamego Clinic to our new campus in Manhattan and the Flint Hills Hospital in Junction City. Our partnerships with organizations like the Mayo Clinic and the Children's Miracle Network bring top-notch expertise to our region. We take pride in local collaboration to stay connected to our communities. Visit stormontvale.org.
Stormontville Health, high-quality care closer to home.
Manhattan Broadcasting is keeping it local. Dollars spent locally today help build a better community for tomorrow.
WTC Fiber Internet is on its way to all of Manhattan. Sign your home or business up today at WTCKS.com. No contracts, no data caps, or overage fees. Fast, local, reliable. WTC Fiber Internet. Sign up today at WTCKS.com.
Midwest Ace, around the block with what you need in stock with people who know how to help. Shop in-store or online for whatever your home or your yard needs. Choose from top brands like Milwaukee, Steel, Traeger, and Benjamin Moore. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks.
Connect to anywhere in the world with 5 daily flights to Dallas and Chicago when you fly local with Manhattan Regional Airport. You'll spend less time driving, saving you gas and time. And more importantly, you'll get home quicker to the ones you love. Click your next flight at flymhk.com.
Manhattan Broadcasting is keeping it local. Find more great local businesses plus special deals and offers when you keep it local on our website.
This is Tori Berard, and I'm the bank manager at ESB Financial. We're a local community bank, and our vision is to help our clients achieve their dreams. So what's your dream? Is it to own a home in the Manhattan community? Do you want to open your own business? Or are you working on building your savings account for a dream vacation? Whatever it may be, we want to help. Come see us at ESB Financial and find out how our unbeatable products and customer service can help you achieve your dream. Member FDIC.
Eagle Housing Lender.
The Ramsey Show.
So I am 20 years old, straight out of high school. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona to start my own business selling furniture.
What does selling furniture look like?
So I go around picking it up, clean it up, take really good pictures and sell it. I'll probably do about 100 grand this year net.
Wow. Some of you are standing around with your finger in your ear. And then you got a 20-year-old with a high school education that's making 100 grand flipping used furniture.
He's laughing all the way to the bank.
Financial advice for everyone. The Ramsey Show. Weekdays from 10 to 1 on News Radio, KMAN. KMAN's Morning News. Tomorrow morning, 6 to 9. This is Within Reason with Mike Matson on News Radio, KMAN.
It is Kansas Day, and we are honoring our statehood today in a conversation with former Kansas Governor John Carlin, who lives here in Manhattan. The admission of Kansas into the United States was part of a compromise aimed at maintaining a balance of free and slave states in the Union. Governor, before the break, we were talking about this notion of what you and I would consider mainstream sort of thought and work and compromise, which used to be sort of the order of the day. If for the sake of argument, these sorts of slavery-driven, morality-driven issues were on the table today, would we be able to find that compromise?
It'd be much more difficult, much more difficult, because when you have two different philosophies, one right of center, one left of center, with experienced, talented people on both sides that believe in the Constitution, believe in the importance of government and so forth, and understand government. It just works much better.
There was a time, I want to say it was before, you were probably in the legislature, mid-'70s, when I think the legislature mandated the teaching of Kansas history in our public schools, right?
Yes.
And that's when I came up, and I remember taking those classes, and that still has meaning to me today with respect to being a Kansan. So give us a sense of, when you think about that, when you think about, you're a lifelong Kansan. You were born here, you're going to die here, right? Just like me. What's it mean to you to be a Kansan?
Well, I'm just proud of our history. And as you've very well shared it today, going back to the beginning.
Sure.
We have a lot to be very proud of. We have a lot to be proud of in terms of economics and the contribution we've made, the people we feed around the world, help feed around the world because of what we do here in Kansas, the aircraft industry, et cetera, and all the talented leaders that we have contributed to this country. We have a lot to be very proud of, and a lot of strengths. But key to any time is to not decide it's good enough, we don't have problems. We have problems, and we need to acknowledge it and then sit down and actually, instead of play political games, have discussions and debates over getting solutions that are balanced and will survive, and not be in a situation where this group gets it passed and then another philosophy comes in and throws it out. I mean, if there have been some compromises, then it could be steadily implemented over a longer period of time and make a real contribution.
It's really easy to just to kind of, if you're involved in the work, or if you're just a layperson and you read the paper and you get scared with what you see. It's really easy just to get on the wave and ride it, right, and not take action. But every now and then you got to get knocked off the wave, right, one way or another, and kind of get a sense.
One issue I think of was water, which has always been a serious issue. And when I took it on, we didn't have a water office. Amazingly, we didn't even have an office. And I said, we got to get more serious about it. And Joe Arkins was one of my really key leaders and worked with me closely. But we knew it'd be controversial, very political. So instead of us coming up by ourselves a plan and introducing it to the legislature for the regular process, we went to Republican leadership in both houses and asked two key people. Dave Heineman from Gordon City and Charlie Angel, senator from Southwest Kansas, and a couple of Democrats, but the two Republicans to get the balance, and said, we want you to sit down with us and let's put the plan together.
Fair enough.
And then I will submit it. But I want to submit something that I know I got some strength going forward.
Our guest today has been Governor John Carlin. He served as governor of Kansas from 1979 until 1987. Last question, Governor, for you before we let you go. When you think about Kansas Day, what message would you like to share with the citizens of Kansas on this special day?
I would say that I think we can all agree we got challenges and very difficult times, but we can't give up. There's a way out, and in any aspect of the challenges we face. Like I mentioned earlier, in terms of this bird flu deal, it scares the hell out of me, and we got to get a lot of people at all levels involved. But there can still be a bright future. There can still be a governor come to Cayman 30, 50 years from now and talk about all the great things that Kansas continues to do.
Excellent, Governor. We appreciate your service to the state. We appreciate your willingness to come by and have this conversation with us today. What's the rest of your Kansas Day look like after you leave us this morning?
Well, first thing I got to go, I got to get my hearing aids fixed.
Fair enough. Fair. We won't mention Governor Carlin's age, but we can just draw conclusions and let's leave it there.
Anybody with a little math can put it together real fast.
Fair enough. Governor, we appreciate it very much. Thanks again. We appreciate it. Point of personal privilege now that I will take as sort of the host of this program. Out of three siblings that were born and raised in Kansas, I was the one who intended to leave New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami. It wasn't at the time scorn for Kansas, but as a young man on the move, I was just simply ambivalent about my state. As it turned out, I was the only one who stayed. I fell in love with a Kansas girl. We made our home in this vast and diverse land where the buffalo once roamed. Career choices have taken me to all 105 counties. I've had the good fortune to build relationships with Kansans who span the generational, socioeconomic, and cultural spectrums. When I reflect on the societal norms and expectations that we have discussed today over the course of my adult life, it dawns on me how much Kansas has changed and how I have changed with it. It is really more of an others-first way of being. It's grounded in reason and a free state spirit of community. It's a peace of mind that sinks in deep when one develops and then practices the ability to discern the worthiness of the discouraging word, whether it is seldom heard or whether it is seemingly cacophonous, as we often hear today. The Kansas Day forecast calls for sunshine pushing 50 under skies that will not be cloudy all day. My bright lights and big city impulses have long since faded, and I have reconciled my ambivalence. I can't imagine ever leaving our state. Ad astra per aspera. We hope you enjoy your Kansas Day. Thanks for listening. Quick promo of what we got coming the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we'll be joined by Ed O'Malley. He is the president and chief executive officer of the Kansas Health Foundation. He sits on an enormous pile of money that is aimed at improving the health of Kansans. We'll find out how they do that tomorrow with Mr. O'Malley, whose son, by the way, is vice president of the student body here at K-State. Be with us Friday at the beginning of a very important conversation locally in our community. Katie Allen is an elected member of the Manhattan-Ogden School Board. She'll visit with us about balancing the pitfalls and opportunities that are connected to smartphones and the classroom. And if you've lived in our region for a while, you are at least a little bit familiar with a sect of conservative Catholics who find their home in southeast Potawatomi County. On Tuesday of next week, we'll be joined by Nick Novelli and Bill Drew. They are members in good standing of the Society of St. Pius X in St. Mary's. We'll visit with them about their beliefs, about conservative Catholicism, their relationship with Vatican, their neighbors in Potawatomi County, and their brand new, shiny Immaculata that has been built for those folks that are involved with that. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Kansas Day. My name is Mike Matson. The program is Within Reason.
From lending options to